What's going on, everybody? And welcome back. So last time we looked at our field radios, we looked at the KX2 and the KX1, and I kind of said those were sort of the two that stood out above the rest of the pack when we were talking about QRP field radios. And there were some reasons for that, but I did say that if I got any other radios, I would put those up against these. So today we are back, and we've got a contender to go up against the KX2. And this is a radio that I've been wanting to get my hands on for a while. I just had to wait for the right one to come around at the right price. So we've looked extensively at the KX2. We've talked about its pros and cons. And, you know, we kind of talked about why I thought this was the best all-around field radio. So let's just go back through our specs here so that everybody remembers what we're looking at. All right, so these guys are about $1,600 for the shack in a box. It's about a 16-week wait. All right, it's 5.8 by 2.8 by 1.5, weighs 13 ounces. Power output's 10 watts. It's got an internal tuner, an internal battery. It's got fantastic filtering, a fantastic receiver. It does 80 to 10. It does phone, CW, and digital. All right, so those are kind of the standout features of this thing, right? It's pin diode switching, great for CW, fantastic receiver. But it does have some downsides. It doesn't sound that great. The interface is kind of clunky. The build quality is, at least the external physical build quality is only so-so. But I did feel that this was probably the most all-encompassing, full-featured field radio you could buy. And because of all of the pros and all the things this radio offered, I thought that this was probably the best radio you could get for field use. Now, the contender today is a radio that's in a totally different category. It's still a QRP radio, but it's for a different kind of operator. So let's get this KX2 out of the way, and let's take a look at the Icom IC705. So I picked this up about a week back, and I've been playing with it ever since. I use this sort of as my primary radio for the past week, just to kind of get used to the different features. And I can tell you that this is a really, really impressive radio. It went up a little too far. Apologize for that. This is a really impressive radio. The feature set on this thing is absolutely incredible. There are some things about it that I have some issues with, but they're few and far between. All in all, this thing is fantastic. Now you can see it's in a cage. It's in a POV cage, and it's got a little mount on the bottom. That stuff would all come off, and this radio would just be the little brick that you see inside the cage there, right? This thing is a tank. So this particular radio, this is not something I would want to carry out into the field very far. It's kind of heavy and it's kind of big, but let's talk about the specs. So the IC705, they're $1,350 and they're widely available. Unlike the KX2, which is hard to get your hands on, these things you can hop on Ham Radio Outlet or Gigaparts or DX Engineering or whatever, and you can have one in a couple of days. It's 7.9 by 3.3 by 3.2, and it weighs a hefty 2.4 pounds, and that's without all this stuff on it. Power output's 10 watts on an external power supply and 5 watts in the internal battery pack. It's basically a little 7300. I mean, the display is the same. The interface is very similar. It's got Bluetooth. It's got a built-in sound card. This thing is, when I say this thing runs all band, all mode, I mean all band, all mode. This thing does 160 to 70 centimeters. All right, so this is literally, the only thing you're missing on here is 1 1/4, and then anything higher than 70 centimeters, which is not very commonly used. But, you know, you're 160 through 6, and then you've got 2 meters and 70 centimeters. It runs D-Star. It's got built-in GPS. It'll do SSTV. It'll decode RIDI. The KX2 will decode RIDI also. This thing will run phone, CW, and digital. It's a phenomenal radio. It's got one glaring omission, which we'll talk about in a minute. I really think this is where Icom missed the mark on this radio. I kind of understand why it is this way, but we do need to talk about that because it is sort of the elephant in the room with this radio. So let me move this out of the way, and we'll just go back to the KX2 real quick just to make sure everybody remembers the things that we need to know about this radio. So let me get my antenna coax here. It's stuck. We're gonna have to turn a little bit so that we can, I don't have enough coax to reach the center of my desk. So let me get this light out of our way here. Okay, so we'll fire the KX2 up just so everybody remembers the different feature set things on this that sort of make this a standout radio. Let me go ahead and turn my backlight back on. I have the, there we go. Okay, so if you remember, we've got a very clear, very easy to read LCD display. We have an internal battery. We have an internal tuner. It's pin diode switching. The filtering and receiver are amazing on this radio. The sound quality on this radio is fairly good. See if we can find a signal here. We got two, one on top of the other. I mean, it sounds okay. It's a little tin canish, but it's a small speaker. It's a little late for 40 meters, but... There you go.
Operating from Cobb Island, Maryland. This is November 3, Victor, CQ.
All right, so that's what it sounds like on single sideband. You've heard this on CW before. I'm not going to rehash it. You've seen all the different feature sets and things this radio has. This is really a great field radio. Now let's take a look at this 705. The 705 is going to be a little bit different. So let me go ahead and hook my coax up here, and I'm going to hook the coax up to, I have I'm going to use an MTAC ZM2 tuner today for this radio, in case I decide to transmit. This is the one issue I have with this radio. For all of the features this radio has, it does not have an internal tuner. Now, in a lot of cases, that's not going to be a big issue. If you run resonant antennas, not a big deal, right? However, there are times when having a tuner is nice, even with a resonant antenna. Let me hook my key up. I've run into situations where, even with a resonant antenna, for whatever reason, ground conductivity or whatever, the SWR is a little excessive, right? It'd be nice to just be able to hit a tuner and have this thing tune up. Now, I do have an automatic tuner coming for this, but that's something you do need to consider. Is that for all of the features this radio has, that one glaring omission is that it does not have an internal tuner. And I really wish it did. If this radio had an internal tuner, I would say this is the best field radio you can buy. Full stop, end of story, bar none. Call it a day. Just buy one and go. All right. With one exception, and that's the weight and size. If you're going to be carrying this thing in, this is a little big and hefty. But other than that, if this thing had a tuner, it'd be a no-brainer. I still think it's kind of a no-brainer kind of radio. But like I said, there are some issues with that. So let me go ahead and fire this thing up. Now, if you're familiar with Icom's user interface, it's very easy to use. All right, I'm actually on a GMRS frequency right now. I was playing with this earlier. So let me go ahead and I'm going to put this thing in. So we'll go ahead and we'll switch to 20 meters. And we're on 20 meters CW. And let me go ahead and tune this thing up. Now, this is one of the few things about this radio that I don't like. For the most part, the menu functions is they're very easy to use. All right, so I want to be able to send a solid tone to tune this thing. This might take a second to tune up because this ZM2 is a little fiddly to tune. So I'm going to go menu, and this is all our different menu functions. So we've got the full-size scope. All right, we've got our audio. We've got a oscilloscope and whatnot. We've got a meter screen, which shows us our ALC, our compression, our SWR, our current draw, our voltage, our temperature, all those things. But this is a really nice screen. We've got an SWR measurement, which I'll show you in a minute. This is kind of neat. There are a bunch of other things, memory scans, record. You can record all sorts of stuff on this. All your different memories, your GPS. This does have an internal GPS, so if you want to see where you are, all right, you can see that. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tune this thing up. So I need to go in. This is a pain in the butt because I switch between paddles and straight keys and bugs and cooties all the time. So I've got to go keyer, edit, CW key, paddle, straight key, exit. Now I can go into my meters so I can see my SWR. Now this will show SWR up here, but I want a bigger SWR meter. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tune this thing up. So if you've never seen one of these ZM2 tuners used before, all right, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn these knobs until I have the highest sound output on the radio. We might be right about where we need to be. Now I'm going to flip this switch from operate to tune. Now I'm going to hit the key, and you're going to see a red light. And what I want to do is I want to adjust my knobs until that LED goes out, or just about goes out. All right, that LED is, for all intents and purposes, out. It's lit a tiny bit still. But if we go over to the radio now, so if you look, so here's SWR. What are we at? About a 1.2 to 1, 1.1 to 1. Just looks good to me. All right, so we now have a good SWR. So now I'm going to go ahead and go to the scope. So the waterfall on this thing's really nice. Now when you first take this thing out of the box, the waterfall is kind of hard to read. The color choices are strange. I actually followed a video on YouTube as to how to set this thing up to make it more readable, and it is substantially more readable now. But let's go ahead and see if we can find a decent CW signal. Let's try this guy. Where'd you go? Okay. I will say the audio on this radio is phenomenal. It is probably the best sounding field radio I have. Oh, there we go. Of course, he disappears as soon as I tune to him. Like I said, the audio on this thing is phenomenally good. It's incredible. The speaker is loud. The waterfall makes it very easy to find signals. It's very crisp. Once you get it set up correctly, it's very crisp, very clear. All right, I mean, listen to that thing. It sounds amazing. All right, the sound quality of this thing's good. I would say this and the TX500 are probably the two best sounding field radios I own. This thing sounds really, really good. I would say this probably sounds as good, if not better, than the TX500. I will say the TX500's filtering, I think, is better than this, but I think this maybe sounds a little richer. We'll listen for a second. I mean, that sounds good. Side tone. So let me go ahead now. I gotta go back, menu, keyer, edit, CW key type, paddle, exit. Oh, let me show you the SWR thing. This is kind of neat. So we'll go into SWR. I'm gonna hit play, and then I'm just gonna hit the key. And if you watch this graph, it'll show you up. It's gonna go 10K step across here, and we're gonna see what the SWR looks like. So we're basically at a flat like 1.2 to 1 all the way across this portion of 20 meters, which is awesome. So go back to our scope. Move down this way a little bit because I got somebody right next to me. All right, and this thing sounds quite good. It's relays, not pin diodes, but they're very quiet. Sending CW on this thing is perfectly acceptable. I have no problems with it at all. Is it quite as good as the Elecraft? No. Is it almost to the point where you wouldn't even notice the relays? Yeah, I barely even notice them. But this thing's got all sorts of different functions. So like, let's see if we can find some single sideband to listen to. So we've got band stacking here. So you long press, and then we'll go see if we can find some. See if we can find something that's strong.
Viewers, this 12 Days of Christmas, Whiskey 2 Foxtrot, stroke 5.
All right, so here we go.
CQ for the 12 Days of Christmas special event. This is
Listen to that.
French hens, W2F, Whiskey 2 Foxtrot, stroke 5.
And that sounds good. I have all of the noise. I have noise reduction on, but I don't have the noise blanker on or anything. I don't need it right now.
7, I believe it's Zulu Victoria.
They're all in
your
this function
5-9
menu.
Arkansas. Okay, I have it corrected. Sorry about that. Kilo Juliet 7, Zanzibar, Germany. You're 5-9 Arkansas.
All right, so as you can see, this thing sounds extremely good. The waterfall makes it easy to find signals. All you do is if you want to change bands or frequencies, you just touch this. You can pick your band. I'm going to leave it on what I'm on right now. You can change your frequency tuning rate by touching those. We can change between VFO and memory here. It gives us our time. You can see our GPS is currently working. To adjust your filter, simply touch filter, and you can pick your different filters. Filter 1, filter 2, filter 3. This knob right here allows me to move my filters. All right, so if I want to change my filter or my offset or anything like that, all right, we can do that. So right now I've got a filter with the 3000 hertz.
QRZ? N8JFJ, you're 5-9 Arkansas.
All right. To change your operating type, just hit up here.
W2F, stroke 5.
All right, so single sideband, CW, RTTY, AM, FM, digital voice, wide FM, or data. All right, so you can choose through all of those different deals. If I want to switch into D-Star, long press this DR button. All right, and now I'm on D-Star. So if I wanted to work, and obviously I can't do that on this antenna, but if I wanted to work UHF, VHF, whatever, it's very easy to do on this radio. If I want to switch to, let's say I want to go to 2 meters, boom, there we go, we're on 2 meters. All right, so it's that simple. It's very, very easy. If I want to switch to menu or my memories, we just click where it says VFO, click memories, and now I can cycle through different repeaters and things like that. All right, super easy. We'll go back, go to the VFO again. I'm going to go back to, switch back to 20 meters. All right, so as you can see, this radio is really super full featured. I mean, it's got...
Hey, Doug, Kilo Charlie 3, Victor Juliet Sierra. You're also 5-9 Arkansas there. Thanks for the call, Doug.
I mean, this thing's got pretty much every feature you can think of. I've been using this, like I said, I actually have been using this as my primary shack radio for the past week. I normally run my FTD-X10 back here, right? This is my normal shack radio is this FTD-X10, which I use. I love this radio. It's fantastic. For the past week, I've been using this 705 pretty much exclusively just to kind of get a feel for the feature set and how well it works and doesn't work. And I got to say, all in all, I'm extremely impressed. It's a phenomenal little radio. Like I said, that one omission that I wish Icom hadn't done is that tuner. I wish this radio had an internal tuner. If it had an internal tuner, this radio would be pretty much perfect. It'd be very, very hard to beat. All right. It's still hard to beat, but it would be much harder, darn near impossible if this thing had a tuner in it. All right. Now, again, I run resonant antennas most of the time, so that's not usually an issue. But like I said, sometimes, you know, especially like a vertical, I'll set a vertical up and I just can't get it to tune for whatever reason. That the ground conductivity is not right. You know, I play with the radios, and we get it close, but we can't get it to a point where I'm happy with it. You know, it still might be 2.5 to 1 or whatever. It's nice to be able to just mash a button and have it find a match, so I'm not worried about hurting the radio or anything, right? Not a big deal. Like I said, that ZM2 does a pretty good job of tuning. It's pretty easy to use. And the thing I like about the ZM2 is it doesn't have batteries, all right? Now, like I said, I do have an auto tuner coming today. It should be here today. That interfaces directly to the 705. You can set this up for a tuner, and as soon as you key up, it immediately tunes the radio, and you're ready to roll. But like I said, that's the one thing that I wish this radio had. It's got so many features. You know, you want to change your mic gain and your RF power. I can't change power right now because I'm running off the internal battery. If I hook this to external power, I could crank that up. If I go back into CW, so we'll go back down to the CW portion of the band. Now that I'm in CW, if I hit that, now I can change my key speed and my CW pitch in real time. All right, this radio is very, very easy to use. The menu system is fairly intuitive. All the functions are easy to get to. The button layout's easy on this. It's a little tricky on that FTDX 10 behind this. They're kind of crowded around that VFO. I'm used to it now, but that's one complaint people have with that radio, is that the button layout is very crowded. This one's very, very open, very, very easy to use, very easy to get to. Not really a big issue. So let's kill this radio. Let me disconnect everything. And then let's talk about these two radios. And I'm going to tell you right up front, there's not going to be a winner between these two radios. And I know that's kind of a cop-out, but let me explain why. Because I think they're for two different people. They're for two different use cases. And I think it's important to differentiate. So let's get our 705 here. Our KX2. So let's talk about these two radios, and let's talk about when I think each radio sort of shines and who I think each radio is for. So let's start with our venerable KX2, okay? The KX2 is for the person who needs light, packable. I mean, if you look at how much smaller this radio is than this radio, it's not even funny. I mean, it's big, but compared to the 705, it's diminutive. All right, this radio is vastly smaller than the 705 is, especially with the cage and all the other stuff on it. It's smaller, it's lighter. If you're a CW operator, I think this is overall probably a better radio because it is pin diode switching. It's got an internal tuner, which I personally find important, even though, like I said, I normally run resonant antennas. Sometimes it's nice to have that tuner. If you're doing a lot of hike-in stuff, if you're doing SOTA, I think this is a better radio. However, and this is a big however, for literally everyone else, if you're not doing hike-in stuff, if you're going to be doing drive-up stuff, or if you're going to be doing hike-in stuff that's close, I think this is the radio to buy. I think overall this is a more refined radio. It's got a richer feature set. It's got more options. I think this radio is going to appeal to more people just from the standpoint of, you know, the feature set that this radio offers. You know, the waterfall, the pan adapter, the fact that it does UHF, VHF, it's got GPS, this thing's got everything in it. I think for most people, for most applications, this is going to be a better radio. It's more intuitive to use. It's got more options. The feature set is richer. It sounds vastly better, right? This radio, I think, for most people is going to be a better radio. And it's also cheaper. This radio in this configuration without the cage and stuff on it is $1,350. This radio in this configuration without the side rails and the heat sink is $1,600. Okay, so it's cheap. That Icom is cheaper than the Elecraft. But at the end of the day, like I said, for me, for hike-in stuff, this is a better radio. It just is. It's smaller. It's lighter. It's got a tuner. It's pin diode switching. So if you're a CW op, I think that's a strong point. But if you're doing anything other than hike-in stuff, I think that Icom is better for that kind of stuff. All right. And like I said, I know that's kind of a cop-out because there's not really a winner in this one. But I think these radios are for two different people. I know when I do drive-in POTA activations where I'm setting up on a picnic table and I've got plenty of space to spread out and I don't have to worry about, having to carry a separate tuner and all that other stuff, this is probably going to be the radio I'm going to grab because it just sounds great. It's easy to find open, space in the band. It's just a better overall package, I think. But if I'm hiking in and I got to carry it, there's a 0% chance I'm hiking in with this 705, at least not any distance. If I'm only going, quarter mile or something, yeah, sure, I can carry this thing in. But a hike up soda, forget it. That's what this radio, that's where this KX2 really shines, is in that situation where you're trying to go light, you're trying to go small, you got a lot of stuff to carry, and you got to hike a long ways. This is a better radio. So this is better for that kind of stuff. Both of these radios will do all modes, right? They'll both do CW, digital, phone. If you don't need all that, if you're just doing CW, I wouldn't pick either one of these radios for a hike-in radio. One thing I will give you say about the 705, which I kind of forgot about because I don't operate like this a lot, but if you're a digital op, forget the Elecraft even exists. Just buy this radio. This has got a built-in sound card. You plug a USB cable into it, you plug it into your computer, you're on the air. There's no screwing around. There's no interface. The only interface cable is literally a USB cable. The only radio I think that's easier for digital is that FX4CR. You Bluetooth it directly to FX or to the FT8CN, and you're good to go. Now I don't know if I haven't tried yet if I can make this work over Bluetooth to FT8CN. I've done Bluetooth audio on this, and that works great. I have not tried the Bluetooth data. I don't know if you can do that with this radio or not. I haven't tried yet. If I get that to work, I'll shoot another video and show you that. I have hooked it up with the micro USB cable to the computer and run FT8 no problem, and it works great. So you don't need any extra interfaces. If you're a digital op, there's no question at all. Forget that Elecraft even exists. Buy this radio. All right. If you are not hiking in and it's okay to carry more weight and more stuff, buy this radio. If you are hiking in and weight is an issue and size is an issue, leave that at home. Bring this guy. At the end of the day, I will probably find myself using these radios kind of equally. I do a lot of activations where they're just either, in a state park at a picnic table, or I'm 20 feet from my truck. The 705 is probably a better radio for that. In fact, it is a better radio for that. But anything where I'm hiking in, I'm going to be taking this guy, or more than likely, I'm probably not even taking this. I'm probably taking a Mountain Topper or an SW3B or something like that, or maybe the K1, the KX1, just because they're smaller, they're lighter, and since I primarily operate CW, I don't need all the bells and whistles and garbage, right? I mean, if I know on a tuner, I'll take my KX1. If I don't need the tuner, I'm probably going to take that MTR3B or the SW3B and call it a day. So I know, like I said, I know that's kind of a cop-out because I didn't pick a winner, but I don't think you can pick a clear winner between these two radios. They are just too different. They're for two different operators. They're for two different situations, and I don't think you could go wrong with either one of these radios. They're both phenomenal radios. They're just different, right? Pick which one works for you. I mean, I'm lucky enough to own both of them. If you have that luxury, I would 100% recommend you buy both of these radios because, again, they serve two different purposes. Drive up stuff, digital stuff. 99% of people, this is going to be a better radio. Soda, hiking, POTA, weight's an issue, you need an internal tuner, all that kind of stuff, this is going to be a better radio. All right, so at the end of the day, folks, you can't go wrong with either one of them. My recommendation is always just buy both. So again, if I get any other radios, I will put them up against these guys. If it's a more of a portable hike-in style radio, I'll put it up against this KX2. If it's more of a, every man's everyday kind of radio where you might not be hiking in with it, I'll put it up against this radio. If it's a CW radio, I'll put it up against the KX1. Hopefully I can get my hands on a KH1 soon, and that'll go up against the KX1, and we'll see what we think. So everybody, I really appreciate you watching yet another one. Hopefully it was informative. Hopefully it gave you, some ideas as to which one of these radios might be better for you. And if you've got any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'll try to get back to them as soon as I can. So thank you, everybody, so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And until the next one, as always, 7-3.